Imagine for a second that you walk into a bookstore.
Mhm.
You pick up a copy of, say, Hamlet.
Okay.
You travel back in time to Elizabethan England, find Shakespeare, and you just hand him the book. He copies it out word for word and publishes it.
Right.
The question is,
Yeah.
who actually wrote Hamlet?
It has no origin.
Yeah,
It just exists in a loop. And that is, I mean, that's the classic definition of the bootstrap paradox.
A causal loop.
Exactly. It's where an object or, a piece of information, in this case, the play, has no discernible beginning. It just defies the standard law of cause and effect because the effect is the cause.
And today, we're not just talking about some theoretical paradox. We're looking at the story that arguably perfected this very concept.
Oh, absolutely.
You're doing a deep dive into Robert A. Heinlein's 1959 short story, All You Zombies.
It's widely considered the ultimate time travel story. And not because it's, some epic adventure with dinosaurs or lasers.
No.
But because it is this incredibly tight, almost claustrophobic examination of a single timeline just folding in on itself.
And when we say folding, I mean, it literally ties itself into a knot. This is a story where a character isn't just changing their own history.
It's their own history.
It's a narrative feat that Heinlein apparently wrote in a single day.
Which is just staggering when you think about the complexity of the plot. He wrote it, sent it off, and it was promptly rejected by Playboy.
Well, to be fair, Playboy in the late 50s did publish some great fiction.
They did.
But this story was probably a little too weird, even for them. It deals with gender reassignment, intersex physiology, and a level of incest that, frankly, you need a flowchart to understand.
So it eventually landed in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction in 1959.
And thank goodness it did.
Because it became this touchstone for scientists and philosophers. I mean, you've got Carl Sagan, David Lewis, Dana C.L.M. They all reference this specific, 15-page story when they talk about the mechanics of time.
So our mission today is to try and figure out why. We are going to trace the timeline of a person who is their own mother and their own father.
And we're going to look at the philosophical nightmare that's just hidden right there in the title.
It's a story about identity, loneliness, and the terrifying possibility that we're all just, waiting for a bus in someone else's universe.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's step into the scene. It's November 7th, 1970. We're in a dive bar in New York City. The atmosphere is quiet, smoky, probably smells like stale beer and regret.
And behind the counter, we have our narrator, the bartender. He's this older guy, cynical, keeps to himself, and he drops this odd little detail early on.
What's that?
That no one in his family ever gets married.
Which sounds like just a throwaway line, right? Like he's just a bachelor.
Yeah.
But in this story, every single detail is a load-bearing wall.
And he's wearing a ring.
The Ouroboros.
The ancient symbol of the snake eating its own tail. You see it in Egyptian iconography, Greek magic.
Yeah.
It always represents infinity or the cycle of life and death.
Or in this case, a very, very closed loop.
And into this bar walks the customer. A young man, barely 25. He orders a drink, and the bartender notices he has this air of profound bitterness about him.
But the most interesting thing about him is the name he writes under. He introduces himself as the unmarried mother.
It's quite the pseudonym.
It is.
Yeah.
The bartender asks about it, and the young man explains he writes for confession magazines.
We should probably explain what those were.
Yeah, for anyone younger listening, in the mid-20th century, before, Reddit threads or reality TV, we had these confession magazines.
And they were huge. Titles like True Romance or True Confessions.
They published these dramatic first-person accounts of scandal, usually focused on women who had, quote, fallen from grace, unwed pregnancies, illicit affairs, that kind of thing.
Right. They were sensationalist, a little moralizing, but incredibly popular. And this character, the unmarried mother, explains he writes these stories from the female perspective.
He claims to know exactly how an unmarried woman feels when she's been seduced and abandoned.
He says it with such conviction that the bartender kind of calls him on it.
He does. He puts a bottle of liquor on the bar.
Mm-hmm.
He calls it the bet and says, if your story's better than my liquor, I'll give you the bottle.
And so the young man begins. This is where the flashback starts. The tragic history of a person named Jane.
And this is where the story shifts from just a barroom chat to a real tragedy. The character reveals that he wasn't born male.
No.
He was born a female infant and abandoned at an orphanage in 1945.
Jane's life is just defined by isolation. She grows up in this orphanage feeling fundamentally different from the other girls. She even says she feels like a horse in a flock of sheep.
She tries to find a place to belong, She even attempts to join this strict military-style comfort corps to support space travelers.
But she gets rejected for reasons she doesn't really understand.
It's just one rejection after another. Until 1963, Jane is 18 years old. She's working menial jobs, she's lonely, just drifting. And then
She meets a man.
a mysterious older man.
It's a whirlwind romance. For the first time, Jane feels seen. She falls completely in love, she is seduced, and almost immediately she becomes pregnant.
And just as quickly as he arrived, the man vanishes.
He's gone.
He leaves her pregnant and destitute. It's the classic Confession magazine setup, right?
Oh.
The girl left holding the baby.
Yeah.
But the real twist, the big one, comes at the hospital.
Jane goes into labor, and it is catastrophic. The doctors have to perform an emergency C-section. And while she's under anesthesia, the surgeons discover that Jane is intersex.
Now, Heinlein was writing this in 1958, so the medical terminology and understanding were different.
Very different. But the premise is that Jane had both internal male and female reproductive organs, and the doctors determined that the birth complications have completely ruined the female organs. They're beyond repair.
So without Jane's consent, which really reflects the, terrifying medical paternalism of the era,
Oh, yeah.
the doctors performed gender reassignment surgery. They save the male organs, which were immature but intact, and they reconstruct Jane physically as a male.
Can you just imagine waking up from that?
No. You've lost your lover, you've just had this traumatic birth, and the doctor walks in and tells you that you are no longer a woman, you are now, physically and legally, a man.
It just destroys Jane's identity. But the final blow hasn't even landed yet.
Right.
While Jane, who is now him, is recovering, someone sneaks into the nursery and kidnaps the baby girl.
The baby is gone, without a trace. So this character has lost everything. His history as a woman, his future as a mother, and the one child that was his only connection to the world.
And that is how Jane becomes the unmarried mother. He has to learn to live as a man in the 1960s, learns to type, takes up writing these tawdry stories because it's the only way he can, monetize his pain.
And that path leads him, 7 years later, right into that bar in 1970.
It is a devastating backstory.
It is. When he finishes telling it, the mood in the bar is heavy. But the bartender, he isn't just a sympathetic ear. This is where the trap snaps shut.
The bartender leans in and he makes this offer. He says, "I know where the man is who did this to you.
The man who seduced you and ruined your life.
If I take you to him, will you kill him?"
And the unmarried mother doesn't even hesitate. He is so full of rage, he just says yes. So the bartender leads him into the back room. But instead of a street exit, there's a machine.
A time machine. The bartender reveals he's a temporal agent, a member of a bureau that polices history. They step into the machine and they jump.
Back to April 3, 1963.
The specific date Jane met her seducer.
The bartender hands the unmarried mother a weapon and drops him off in a park, tells him to find the man, and then the bartender just leaves him there.
Okay, and we have to track the bartender's movements very carefully here.
Right.
He leaves the unmarried mother in 1963, but he doesn't go back to 1970 yet. He jumps forward 11 months to March 1964.
To the hospital, the night the baby was kidnapped.
Exactly. The bartender enters the nursery, takes the baby girl Jane's baby, and jumps back in time again, all the way back to 1945.
And he leaves the baby on the steps of an orphanage.
And this is the first huge realization you have to grapple with as a reader. The baby, dropped at the orphanage in 1945, grows up to be Jane.
Which means Jane gave birth to herself.
Correct. The baby is Jane. Jane is the mother, and the baby is the daughter. They are the exact same person.
But that's only half of the loop.
Not even.
So let's go back to the park in 1963. The unmarried mother is wandering around looking for this man who seduced Jane. He's looking for a villain.
He's looking for someone to hate, but as he's waiting in the shadows, he sees a young girl sitting on a bench.
It's Jane, his younger female self.
And he doesn't just see her, he feels this overwhelming instinctive pull towards her, a sense of completeness he has never felt before.
It's basically narcissism disguised as romance. He goes up to her, they start talking. And because he is a man now, and older, Jane sees him as this mysterious, sophisticated stranger she's been waiting for.
And the realization just hits the unmarried mother like a freight train.
He is the seducer. He is the man Jane fell in love with.
The mechanics of it are just brutal. He seduces his younger self, he impregnates her, he ensures that the baby, who is also himself, is created.
So he is his own father.
And his own mother.
And his own child.
The whole family tree. The bartender returns to pick him up right after the act is done, completing the tragedy. The unmarried mother is in total shock,
Understandably. But the bartender whisks him away to 1985.
drops him on at the headquarters of the Temporal Bureau, and the unmarried mother, now seeing the true shape of his own reality, gets recruited into the agency.
He spends the next few decades working as a time agent, aging, getting cynical,
Until he gets one last assignment.
to go undercover as a bartender in New York, 1970.
To meet his younger self, to hear the story, and to start the whole cycle all over again.
The bartender is the unmarried mother, just older.
It is a perfect closed circle. The baby, Jane, the unmarried mother, the bartender, all the same person at different points on the same timeline.
This is where a philosopher like David Lewis gets really excited. He argued this story is the only way time travel actually makes sense.
Right. Because usually we worry about the grandfather paradox. If I go back and kill my grandfather, I'm never born, so I can't go back and kill him. It's a contradiction.
But in All You Zombies, the time travel doesn't change the past. It creates the past.
Yes. The unmarried mother has to go back to 1963 to impregnate Jane, or else he is never born. The effect, his birth, necessitates the cause, the time travel. It's logically consistent, even if it's biologically impossible.
It's the Ouroboros. The snake isn't destroying itself, it's feeding itself.
Exactly. Stanislaw Lem called it the minimal possible bootstrap paradox. It's an elegant, self-sustaining system. But while the logic is clean, the emotional implication is horrific.
And that brings us to the title. The story ends with the bartender closing up shop in 1970, and then he jumps forward to his retirement date. He's totally alone. He looks at his C-section scar.
The mark of his beginning and his end.
And he has this moment of supreme existential crisis. He knows exactly where he came from. He fathered himself. He bore himself. He recruited himself. He's the entire family tree in one body.
He is a universe of one.
And because he is so sure of his own existence, he starts to doubt the reality of everyone else. He thinks, and I'm quoting here, "I know where I came from, but where did all you zombies come from?"
That is the line that just haunts you, all you zombies. He's looking at you, the listener, the normal people with mothers and fathers, and he sees us as the weird ones.
It's solipsism in its most extreme form. Solipsism is this philosophical idea that the only mind you can be sure exists is your own.
But for the bartender, this isn't a theory, it's his lived reality. He is a closed loop. We are just linear accidents. To him, we're background extras, zombies walking around to make the world look populated while he plays out his eternal drama.
It totally flips the script on loneliness. Usually we think of connection as the default state, but he views his isolation as the only true form of purity. It's terrifyingly lonely, but it's also incredibly arrogant.
It's a defense mechanism, I think. If you are truly that alone, you have to believe you're a god, or else you would just go insane.
We should mention the film adaptation, Predestination.
Oh, we have to. Starring Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook. It came out in 2014.
And it is a fantastic film. It's remarkably faithful to the plot.
It is, but there's a bit of a tonal shift. The movie tries to add this layer of romance, a sense that the character truly loves themselves in a way that is almost tender.
Whereas Heinlein's story feels colder, more clinical.
Yes. In the book, the seduction isn't romance. It's a necessity. It's almost mechanical. The movie softens the edges of the narcissism a bit, but the book stares right into that abyss.
Sarah Snook's performance, though.
Incredible. She captures that gender fluidity and the pain of the transformation so well.
Absolutely. And speaking of staring into the abyss, there is one detail in the story that I think just sums up the whole absurdity of the situation.
The jukebox.
The jukebox and the song, "I'm My Own Grandpa."
Which is a real song.
It's a real song. It was a novelty hit in 1947 by Lonzo and Oscar. It's about a guy who marries a widow with a grown daughter, and through this, cascade of marriages, he ends up being his own grandfather.
And in the story, the bartender yells at a customer for playing it. He screams, "Turn that off!" Because it's just too on the nose. It's the universe mocking him.
But then, at the very end of the story, after he's secured the timeline and ensured his own birth,
he lets the song play. He accepts it. He accepts that he is a paradox.
So, what we have is a story about a man who is his own mother, father, and child. A man who recruits himself into a time policing agency just to ensure he can do it all over again. And it raises the question, is this freedom? Or is this a prison?
I think it's a prison. He can never do anything else. He can never choose a different path. If he decides not to travel back to 1963, he just ceases to exist. He's a slave to his own history.
And yet he looks at us, people with free will, people with, unknown futures, and calls us the zombies.
Well, maybe he's jealous. We have the luxury of not knowing what happens next. He has to live the same life, loop after loop, forever.
That is a heavy thought to leave you on. Robert Heinlein wrote this in 1958, and we're still getting headaches trying to figure it out today.
That's the mark of a truly great story, isn't it? It doesn't just entertain you, it rewires your brain a little bit.
So next time you look in the mirror, just be glad you have parents and that you aren't your own grandpa.
It certainly simplifies the family reunions.
If you haven't read All You Zombies, please go find it. It's short, it's punchy, and it is brilliant. Or watch Predestination. Thanks for exploring the loop with us today.
Until next time.
See you in the future.